The Oklahoma City Thunder get another win, sweeping the LA Clippers out of town for their second win of the year because Aleksej Pokusevski truly showed up in this game. Plus, how did SGA handle getting 4 fouls in the first half and Trey Mann's step back that was heard around the world? We'll talk about all of that and more coming up on today's Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, let's dive into the Oklahoma City Thunder sweeping the LA Clippers, as this game was just incredible. You had Shai go for 24 points. You had Trey Mann pop off. Pokusevski was incredible. Lou Dort had the best game of his season. And the Thunder have a 2-game winning streak, winning both games over LA and OKC. And that's how they come to their 2-win record after a 0-3 start. Wow. What a time it is. Thank you so much for making Locked On Thunder your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. For your next listen, go check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. Everything you need in under 30 minutes or less from the biggest stories around all of sports. Check it out today, Locked On Sports. Now, let's start in this game the way we always do with our game overview. In this game, Josh Giddey was out with an ankle injury. Chet Holmgren is out, of course, for the entire season. Jalen Williams out with an orbital bone fracture. Eugene Omoruyi was out with the G League designation. You don't want to use up too many of his 50 days in that two-way contract. And then Lindy Waters III and Jalen Williams were both DNP coach's decision. The Thunder starters in this one were SGA, Trey Mann, Lou Dort, Aaron Wiggins, and Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. Now the starters by minutes, so the 5 most minutes. SGA, Lou Dort, Aaron Wiggins, Pokusevski, and Darius Bazley by just 12 seconds over Trey Mann. So, really, you can look at that with Trey Mann as well. The Clippers start out with Reggie Jackson, Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, Paul George, and Zubac. And, of course, off the bench was John Wall, who was fantastic in this game. But the biggest story was SGA and was the officiating, really. Because in this game, the Thunder did not take their first free throw attempts until the 10:22 mark in the fourth quarter. And SGA has 4 fouls in the first half. So this was not ideal for Shai. This is not ideal for your superstar point guard of the future and, future all-star, and playing at this level right now through these small sample size amount of games at an all-NBA clip. Getting 4 fouls in the first half was not great. They had a push-off call for Shai. They had a charge call for Shai. That was 2 of the 4 that he acquired in that first half, and then a ticky-tack call around the rim, and then it totals up to 4 fouls, and Shai had 24 points at the end of the game. 24 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, 3 steals. He shot 43% from the floor, 2 for 4 from 3, and 2 for 2 at the line. He did not start the second half, and I think that this should be noted, as Mark said after the game, is a testament to his leadership, and, you can't do this with every other star in the league. You can't go to, every other, don't want to single them out by name because, you don't want to do that, but, you can't go to everyone else's number one guy in their organization and say, look, you've got 4 fouls, you're not starting the second half. They just wouldn't go for that, or they'd pout, or they just wouldn't have the right vibes. But Mark talked about how SGA was awesome about it and that he had trust in his teammates. SGA said there was no conversation. Mark said, hey, you're not starting the second half. Everyone knew why, and they moved on and had faith in the group that started the second half in SGA's place. he was still very engaged defensively. He even got a steal defending Paul George, got switched on to him, denied Paul George the entry pass with a steal, one of his 3 steals on the night, which was awesome. And even in this game that he had 4 fouls, his composure and his ability to play under pressure was on full display. We mentioned the 24 points that he scored earlier. That is a tough 24 points. And to still shoot effectively at 43% from the floor. Because the Clippers tried everything. They picked him up high. They blitzed him off pick and rolls and turned that into a double team where they just ignored the roll man and just only worried about Shai and double teaming from there. They tried the box and one. They tried being physical. They tried to do anything that they could to throw him off their rhythm and say, you know what? We're going to force anyone else on this team to step up and to beat us. And luckily for the Thunder, other players did step up. But what I want to talk about here is as the Clippers game plan their entire life and their entire defense, I should say, to be less dramatic, entire defense around SGA with those high pickups, with those blitzes, with the double teams in the box and one and being physical. They tried everything that they can, and SGA has 1 turnover. Now, in the box score, he'll have 3. The push-off is a turnover. The charge is a turnover. But in terms of just true, out-of-sorts playmaking with his ball handling or passing, there's only 1 turnover for SGA. And it was on a play in which it was like a pick and roll with Muscala, and I think that he thought that Muscala was going to pop, but Muscala actually ends up rolling, and he's not there at the top of the key to get the bounce pass, and it just goes the other way. So through all of that attention, through all of that pressure, 1 turnover for your star guard. That, to me, shows you the type of production, the type of player you can expect whenever the moment gets big, whenever these things get into the half court. And Ty Lue pointed out before the game, this is kind of a playoff feel of you're playing the same team back-to-back. You just saw what they did in game 1. Now you get your counterpunch. Now you get to adjust. Now you get to see how you can implement a different game plan against these guys. And Nick Batum was picking up the distance of the court and was playing very physical and getting into the body of Shai. You have Paul George on the other side. You have Reggie Jackson. You have these defenders that Ty Lue liked to use on SGA. And it was very obvious that the Clippers were trying to deny SGA whenever that they could. But SGA not only overcame that, but did not press, did not get too wide-eyed, did not get too razzled. Whenever that physicality came, whenever that pressure came, he just made the right play. He didn't try to do too much. He didn't try to get hard-headed and still drive on 3 people. He trusted his teammates. He got them the basketball in a safe manner, and it opened up the floor for the Thunder as a whole. And it allowed Pokusevski to hit a corner 3 for the dagger. It allowed Trey Mann to dance and hit that step-back 3. It allowed Poku to hit the freaking logo shot that we're going to talk about later on. It allowed all these different things because your star player was able to adapt to the game, was able to adapt to the moment, was able to look at that challenge and take it on in the proper manner versus taking it on in more of a ball-dominant way, which could have still worked out maybe, but it's an easier pathway to victory, an easier pathway to success whenever you get the ball and make the right decision passing-wise whenever you have all of that defensive attention on you. Because if they're going to give you that much attention, somebody's going to be open. And to trust the teammates like that was a huge deal, in my opinion, for Shai in this one. SGA was awesome. And a credit to him. 4 fouls in the first half, 0 in the second half. Mark talked about how one thing that they're going to look at tomorrow during film is there was a few plays he said in the second half where Shai could have been more physical defensively legally, where he wouldn't have gotten a foul call or shouldn't have been given a foul call in that scenario where it was clear to Mark that Shai was basically just timid defensively because he didn't want to get that 5th, 6th foul. And Mark was saying and explaining, look, if I've put you back out there, I trust you, and I want you to go play your game independent of how many fouls that you've been called on, and how many fouls you've been charged with. Just go out there and play. You can't be scared of your 5th or 6th foul. Go out there and play. And so he said that they'll look at that in film tomorrow and discuss that with Shai and Lou Dort, who also picked up 4 fouls in this one relatively early on. Lou Dort picked it up, I want to say like 2 minutes into the third quarter, it felt like, so it was really early for him as well. I think that that's also a great learning experience for SGA, but in general, you have to be thrilled with how your number one option handled being the number one option against a deep playoff team in LA that, you're going to see that caliber of defense and those strategies implemented for the rest of SGA's career. Teams are going to try box and one. Teams are going to try double teams. Teams are going to try blitzing the pick and roll. Teams are going to try everything that they can, being physical, doing whatever they can, putting a body into you to throw off SGA as an elite prolific scorer. And his first, tested at this season, he's been tested at that before, obviously, but this season, huge success for SGA and for the Thunder as a whole. You can have a huge success involving SGA if you go to PrizePicks. PrizePicks has a 100% deposit match up to $100. Use the code LOCKEDON. PrizePicks is daily fantasy sports made easy. You can download right now the PrizePicks app or go to PrizePicks.com. So the PrizePicks app or PrizePicks.com. That is PrizePicks. It's really simple. It's daily fantasy where it's just you versus the projected numbers, so you don't have to worry about going up against like actual sharks that play fantasy for a living and you just have no shot to beat. All you do is it's really fun. Load up the app, PrizePicks app or PrizePicks.com, and let's say Saturday against Dallas. Will SGA score over or under 25 points against Dallas? Will Luka have over or under 8 assists against Oklahoma City? Like you just take those projections, and what do you think will happen? You predict it. I think that Shai will go for over 25 points. If he gets 26 or more, you win, and that's all there is to it. So go there right now, check out PrizePicks, download the app, or go to PrizePicks.com, use code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit match up to $100. Check it out today. That's PrizePicks.com or the PrizePicks app. We are back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Thunder your first listen every single morning, every single day. We are here for you talking Thunder basketball. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the box score and behind the scenes with local experts and insight from the Locked On Podcast Network that only we can provide you. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app you're listening to right now, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcast from. Check it out today. Locked On Sports Today. Well, what a game it was. We talked SGA earlier. We talked about him being the catalyst of the offense, even with those 4 early fouls. Pokusevski deserves a ton of credit. 26 minutes played, 15 points, 3 assists, 6 rebounds, a block. Let's focus on the first thing first, 26 minutes a game. In this game. He coming into this game, he had been experiencing, the Wednesday opener against Minnesota. He had a huge bulk minutes, Saturday against Denver, played like 12 minutes. Sunday, did not play a lot. Tuesday, did not play a lot, played kind of in short bursts and doses. In this game, he played 26 minutes. That's incredibly difficult to have your minutes fluctuate that way and play as well as he did. So credit to him for being able to do what Mark wants. Mark wants these players to be ready to play no matter what they did the game before, what they projected to do the game after. Just be in the moment, be in the game. And Poku was doing that in this game. He had 15 points, 3 assists, 6 rebounds, a block, 3 for 5 from 3, 54% shooting from the floor. What a game. He hit a 3 from the Paycom Center logo, which was the dagger in this one. He hit that corner 3, which extended the lead in the fourth quarter. Pokusevski was just awesome. He had really good passes that either went as hockey assists or just non-makes by his teammate. So the 3 assist number is a little low and not indicative of how good he was as a passer. I thought that he was better physically in this one. He slid over and walled up at the rim a lot better. There were still times where he's flat-footed and guys were able to Euro step past him, or he didn't really know when to jump or commit to the jump at the rim. It wasn't perfect, but it was better, and it was clearly an improvement from the last couple of games, which were the reason, according to Mark, that he got the quick hook, was because he wasn't physical enough against big bodies in the game. This time, he was. He also had a very nice finish at the rim, which was awesome to see. It was like there was this cool play where, SGA was, I believe, around the elbow, and he got double teamed, and so he jumps in the air, turns, kicks it to Poku. Poku just, I call that prancing through the lane, just those long strides to the rim with a nice finish. He also had a couple of great defensive possessions. So one of them, he blocked Zubac, and then the Clippers got the ball back and got it out to Paul George to try a three. And wouldn't you know it, Pokusevski is also closing out on Paul George, getting a great contest and forcing the Paul George miss. And then Darius Bazley's second time blocking a jump shooter went right back to said jump shooter, who then reloaded and shot the ball. But Poku, with all of his length, jumps at the jump shooter, who misses and creates a shot clock violation. That is a testament to a lot of things. Number one, Pokusevski's ability to cover ground and close out, Bazley's ability to block jump shooters, and this team's overall length and why you build a team around length, because you can afford to have these contests and have these closeouts that really impact winning basketball games. It was awesome. It was awesome to watch Pokusevski play in this contest. Lu Dort, I think, had the best game of his season. He did a really good job defending Paul George. Paul George had like 10 points on 12 shots. I mean, it was really good to see Lu Dort guard Paul George. Obviously, Paul George's first game back from sickness, so take that into consideration as well. But Lu Dort finishes with 21 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals. He shot 60% from the floor. Still just 1 for 5 from 3, but he did so many other things to impact the game that it balances out. And that was kind of the problem with these earlier games, where he wasn't impacting the game enough offensively. Where in this game, he got 4 assists. He made some great decisions as a rim finisher. Still shot 60% from the floor, despite going 1 for 5 from 3. So that shows you how good he was at the rim. Much better decision maker also at the rim. Not only did he go up and finish strong, but there was a beautiful play where he had a dribble drive at the rim. It pulls Zubac out from underneath the restricted area, and then Wiggins cuts back door, and Lu Dort keeps his dribble alive. He could have easily just lowered the shoulder like he would have last year, barreled into Zubac and try to get a foul or a bucket, but instead he keeps his dribble alive, has the dump off pass to Wiggins, and Wiggins has an easy bucket, and the Thunder get 2 easy points. He was a plus 18 in this game, only 1 turnover in this contest. Remember, with SGA playing with 4 fouls and not starting the second half, a lot was put onto Lu Dort's offensive plate at that point, and Lu Dort handled the ball and handled the ability or the moment pretty well, all things considered, despite shooting 1 for 5 from 3. Eventually, the 3-point shot will level out, and I think it'll at least be what it was last year. I think it's just a really bad spell from him right now from beyond the arc. So Darius Bazley deserves credit too. 1 for 2 from 3, 44% shooting from the floor on 9 attempts, 9 rebounds, 9 points and assists, 3 blocks, 2 of which were 3-pointers. Only 1 turnover, which was bad. It was a lazy inbound pass where Batum was putting pressure and pressing man in the backcourt. Lazy inbound pass gets to a turnover and an easy deuce for Batum. But he plays elite level defense. He's a scrappy rebounder. He's an aggressive driver and a good roll man. And he plays a solid 20 to 25 minutes in this game. That is his role. That is what the Thunder should look for out of him from now on. What the Thunder should want him to be in this role. And so he deserves credit for playing his role. He doesn't need to be a superstar or an all-star or show this uber potential. He needs to be what he was in this game against the Clippers. Trey Mann, though. I mean, it feels like he's taking the leap right before our eyes. 14 points, 2 assists. I should say 14 points, 2 steals, 3 assists, 3 rebounds, 4 for 7 from 3, 5 for 12 overall. He had a step back in this game where it's just unbelievable the way that he danced with Paul George, one of the best defenders in the NBA. He dances with Paul George, who has the length and the defensive prowess, and just knocks down a triple over him. It's awesome. He played a flawless game. A flawless game. He had 1 turnover in the stat sheet, but if you go watch that turnover, Trey Mann creates a steal, never fully grabs the steal, and has it taken right back from him. I'm not going to count that as a turnover. I'm just not. He was incredible. And Mark was asked a good question after the game. How does Trey Mann still create so much space with the step back, even though everyone knows it's coming? And Mark said a funny line and then also a very serious line. So the funny line was that he said that Trey Mann has special feet and that Mark really likes Trey Mann's feet. So he told us to tell Trey Mann that, but we'll tell all of you that as well. But the more basketball one was what's made Trey Mann's step back so lethal is not just his ability to dribble, not just his ability to bend his knees and move his feet and shuffle the feet around him and gets a leaping backward motion that way. But it's because you cannot defend him for the step back. Because if you try to just force him inside the arc, he's shown you he can finish at the rim as well. He's shown you that he can shoot in the mid-range as well. He's shown you that he can shoot at all those levels. So you have to guard him straight up. And at that point, you're on your heels. If you're guarding Tre Mann straight up, you're on your heels. Because if you over-pursue that step back, he can tease it and then go to the rim. If you go too far off of him to try to protect the drive, he can just spot up shoot. He can just score in such a multitude of ways that was on full display against the Clippers, even though he only had 14 points. It was awesome to see. Tre Mann was awesome in this game. We'll talk about Kenny Hustle as well if the bench is the best bench player, plus how the Thunder won this game overall against the Clippers, the bet of the day, and what's to come on the Locked On Thunder podcast. All that is coming up on today's Locked On Thunder podcast. We are back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LO ThunderPod. Make sure you're checking out Locked On Sports today for the biggest storylines of the day with Pete Bukowski, giving you all you need to know in 30 minutes or less of the biggest topics around all of sports, every league, college football, NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, everything that you need. Check it out today. Now, I think that one of the best bench players for the Thunder, we've talked about Bazley, we've talked about Pokusevski, was Kenny Hustle. 12 points off the bench, 3 assists, 2 steals, shot 2 for 4 from 3, tough mid-range jumper. Kenny Hustle did some dirty work, obviously. It's in the name for him. He was really good in this one. But how did the Thunder win this game? We mentioned before, the Thunder did not shoot a free throw. Did not shoot a free throw until the 10:22 mark of the fourth quarter. The free throw disparity for this game saw the Clippers shoot 18 free throws and the Thunder shoot 8. 18-8 in the free throw category. Shai had to play with 4 fouls in the first half. Lou Dort picked up 4 early on in the second half. The Thunder were outboarded 44-36. A little bit deceiving because I felt like, and I'll have to go back on my rewatch tomorrow. I'll rewatch every game in the morning. So every game I go back and rewatch it. I'll have to see if this checks out again whenever I can slow the game down and everything. But it felt like the rebound category was kind of skewed by the Thunder just being a step slow on long rebounds, which is where I think that the Clippers got this disparity, is in those longer rebounds off of missed jump shots from the Clippers. The Clippers had 8 more turnovers. In this game, coming into it, Ty Lue said that the goal for the Clippers was to control their turnovers and get those cut down and get better on the rebounding battle. They did get better rebounding-wise. They were terrible in turnovers. They had 3 turnovers in like 3 minutes. The first 2 minutes of the game, they had 3 turnovers. They had 8 more total than the Thunder did whenever the game was all said and done. The Clippers do win points in the paint, 68-54. The Thunder won second chance points, 21-11. The Clippers actually won the fast break point category this time, 21-13. But I think that this was one of the better offensive games for the Thunder, even despite missing 3 of their better offensive players. Obviously, Chet Holmgren would be an incredible player to have, but you're going to miss him all year. Josh Giddey out, one of your best playmaking setup guy that you have, plus a really good rim finisher and a really good player in general. And then Jalen Williams, who I think is going to be an awesome high-impact player offensively. Missing all those guys, but still the Thunder shot 75% at the rim. They shot 50% from the corner 3 spot and 41% on non-corner threes. This was a fantastic game for their offense in this one. They limit Paul George to just 10 points on 12 shots, but the Clippers did have 6 in double figures, just as the Thunder did. But John Wall was the best player on the floor for the Clippers. 17 points off the bench. He was awesome in this one. Really looks good so far this year, so I'm happy for John Wall. As a little quick aside, Jalen Williams was out, of course, in this game because of that orbital bone fracture, but he's getting to that 7-day window tomorrow, and the window was like 7 to 10 for the next reevaluation of him. He was shooting pregame with a mask and did not wear sunglasses on the bench during the game, which was a step in the right direction for him. Speaking of that, the vibes on this team, by everyone I've talked to in all accounts, are immaculate. And in this one, you saw Chet, you saw Giddey, you saw J-Dub and Eugene Murray, all in street clothes, all on the bench, but all really engaged in the game. They were paying attention in huddles. They were hyping up their teammates after made shots. Jalen Williams was fighting for SGA to get a foul call on a transition bucket where he got hacked and there was no call. Like, they were very in tune with the game. They weren't just sitting there, hands on their knees, looking up and down the court and maybe giving a little golf clap. They were really involved in the game and really paying attention in this one. I thought that was awesome to see that buy-in still, even from players who aren't on the floor right now. The Thunder remain undefeated against the spread. The spread was OKC plus 8.5. That, of course, clears because the Thunder won outright. The MVP of this game was SGA. I thought that it was really special stuff that he was able to handle this game the way that he did. Up next for the Thunder, Locked On Thunder podcast, we're going to have a stock watch episode talking about the Thunder stock watch, whose stock is rising, whose stock is falling, and an around the NBA portion of that as well on the next episode. Plus, we're going to recap that Mavericks game on Sunday. Monday will be the scariest storylines from the Thunder season so far as a Halloween special. Tuesday is a mailbag episode. Wednesday, Magic recap. Thursday, a college basketball preview with Mavs Draft on Twitter, Richard Stamen. Friday is a Nuggets recap from that game on Thursday. So a jam-packed week ahead at Locked On Thunder. Make sure that you stay locked on by subscribing anywhere you get your podcast from, including on YouTube, and drop down below in that comment section on YouTube who was the most impressive player to you in this game tonight for the Thunder and as a whole in this game. So do that for me right there. Come back tomorrow for more Locked On Thunder. Until then, be good and be good to one another.